When I came to Kiev, it was a day before the war began. And then, some Ukrainian friends took us for a drink. And they told us, listen, it is ridiculous that you came here because nothing is going to take place. And then they raised a toast for the, war correspondents who came to cover the peace. I mean, they were laughing at us. And I called my editor and told her, listen, I think it's a big mistake that we are here. I should go back to Israel. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. I know this job. I've been covering world conflicts for 3 decades. Nothing is going to be here. And within 6 hours, the war began.
Oh my God, guys. So I first met our first guest when he was giving one of the most inspiring keynotes and lectures that I've ever seen. And I was sure that he's insane. When you're going to hear him today, I'm sure you'll think he's insane. Meet Itai Anghel. He is one of the top journalists by far in Israel, but in the world, won countless of prizes. I'm not even going to attempt to read all of them. And his latest documentary, which we'll talk about, From the Frontline of Ukraine, right there in the war, when everybody is running away, he is running into the war, is nominated for the Emmy Award. He's really known to go extremely deep and explore some of the most dangerous hotspots in the world and around the globe, covering places from Ukraine and Croatia and Bosnia and Pakistan and Afghanistan and North Korea and Gaza and Egypt and Iraq and Syria. I mean, among so many others. And I can't even try to read all of them.
Sometimes I feel I'm the luckiest man in the world. I see the most interesting places, meet the most unique individuals in the most extreme situations. It's not just about conflict and war, but sometimes I know I've been fortunate to stay alive and tell the story. My name is Itai Anghel. As a journalist, I prefer to be on the ground, in the field, where the action is really happening.
That is not Iran. No. That is not Khomeini. No. That's the people looking for freedom.
For the past 25 years, I've been trying to go everywhere.
I am so honored to meet you, Itai, have you here with our audience. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ilana. Thank you for the kind words. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So seriously, the first time we met, I heard your talk and I think nobody could even breathe. How does someone decide to go to the most dangerous places in the world?
When you come to think about it, most of the historical events are taking place, unfortunately, through wars, battles, revolutions. So this is the time when I want to be there. And this is the time when the story of the people need to be told. I mean, these are the people that we, Israeli people, Jewish people, grown upon. You know, what happened to our nation, what happened to other people. Someone had been there to cover it, to document it. I mean, if I think about like answering your question, think about, that in the 40s, one correspondent or a cameraman or camerawoman, because there are women in this line of job exactly like there are men, and they would say, oh no, death camp is too much for me. I will not go there. It is too dangerous. It is too difficult to digest. You wouldn't have anything, any document from these horrifying events, because there is such a chaos. I mean, you need to have like real journalism over there. So as long as I have, the physical ability, the mental ability, I will keep on doing it. Yeah.
And that's incredible because, and we'll talk about fear because I think that, the question is inevitable, but share for a second a hard moment and how did you cope? Because you're seeing some of the hardest thing in the world. It's one thing, like you said, to talk about it. It's something very, very different to be there, see the people, understand their journeys. So share with us for a second, just to make sure the audience understands what you're looking at.
I mean, in my last journey inside Ukraine, I was very deep in the front line with people, soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, like 800 meters from the Russians. And we were fired upon from everywhere, like rockets, missiles, sniper fire, drones, suicide drones. And you talk to people and realize that death is all around. Everyone knows about 30 or 40 people that already been killed. There is more than 250,000 people who were killed in this war. It's not like a war that we are used to have here in Israel. And it is all around you. Everything is moving, like the earth is moving. The sound is too difficult to cope. Once I have the camera, I have something to hold. I have something to occupy myself with. I have something to aim. So it enables me to work like crazy and not to think. I mean, I am thinking a lot. I think a lot before I go to places. I think much more after watching what happened there and reflecting a lot about it. But there are some points in time when the best is not to think, not to reflect, because, reflecting about where I am will lead to a heart attack immediately. So I need to work and I need to occupy myself. And if you will watch me while working, you will think, oh, this guy is mad. Because the situation is completely insane. And I'm very efficient in my work. I take all the angles with my camera. I move like to all places. When I see it in the editing room, and in the editing room, I'm not in that field mode. I'm relaxed. I'm having coffee and I see this crazy man.
Crazy guy.
This is me. Like, there is really a very, very different mode that I'm getting in. None of my friends here, would recognize me in the field while working. And this is, I got to tell you, I got to admit, it is something that I like. This side of me that I was not aware that exists. Actually, I'm the last one who ever thought that I would be able to do this line of job. Like, I'm not a macho. I'm coming from Israel, but I've never been in a fighting unit. I'm kind of a skinny person. When I'm going inside places, I'm like the less machoistic figure over there. I gotta admit, first I thought it is sort of a disadvantage, but then you realize that once you don't look like intimidating, and I haven't got the look, of a big macho, people are relaxed with my presence, and especially, the civilians, women, children. I haven't got the look of the intimidating type. So imagine a woman, God forbid, was raped, a child who was attacked. When they see like a big muscular man, it might be even a correspondent or a cameraman, immediately there is fear over there. Even if this cameraman is beautiful, kind, and soft person, only the look can be intimidating.
That's how you connect. And that's why your documentaries are so real, which we'll talk about it in a second. But I have to still go back to fear, right? Because again, it's one thing to want to go to the inside. It's something completely different to hear some of your stories of how you saw somebody beheaded and somebody, and again, when everybody's running away, you run towards. Talk to me a little bit about fear. How do you cope with it?
My grandfather, he had a big influence on me. He came to Israel 100 years ago. He built actually the first Israeli port, the stones over there that enable, this first community to survive and to breathe. And he escaped from the Soviet Union. And he had like a crazy story of how he managed to escape. He risked his life. And for me, I didn't get it. Why did he do it? It was so dangerous to him. And then he told me something, and he told it in the Russian language. It's like, sorry for my accent, Глаза боятся, руки делают, which means the eyes are afraid, but the hands are doing. Like everything that you think that it is absolutely crazy to do, it's like insane, it is so frightening. Stop thinking, start doing. It sounds strange in theory, but once you practice, you realize, yeah, that's life. So this is the most important lesson of my life. It is the most important sentence of my life. It's a Russian phrase, but it became like the most important thing for me. And every time,
cope with action. You cope by being active, so that's your coping, basically.
Yeah, because if I keep on thinking and reflecting, again, it will lead me just to lose it completely. Yeah. So it's like diving inside a situation, and I've been doing it, Ilana, for the past 32 years. So you realize, after 1 year, 2 years, 20 years, that it's the right method.
Right. And I also have to, and I hope it's okay to talk about it, because, I think being an Israeli and going to some of these countries, it's exponentially more dangerous and more risky than any other nationality. So, and you're going to places that I don't even know how you do it, right? So what can you share a little bit? Because that's a whole new element that I think most of the audience doesn't even realize. Share a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when I began, it was Bosnia. Okay, it is a very dangerous war. Haiti, Chechnya, Afghanistan, or Congo, but then came a different challenge, when history came to my neighborhood, the Middle East, and a lot of revolutions unfold in front of my eyes, like in Tunisia, in Libya, in Syria, in Egypt, and I want to go there. The problem is, if I go to places like Syria or Lebanon or Iraq, and people would realize that I'm an Israeli, it would be quite severe, like to say the least. So I need to hide my identity. First of all, I have really, the sense that I need to do it, because you mentioned I'm doing it mainly for the Israeli people. And the Israeli people, unfortunately, they live by the stereotype that anyone beyond the border is a pure enemy. They don't know anyone, in Syria. They don't know anyone in Iraq, but they're absolutely sure that these are bad people, enemies. And most of the information they get, when you think about it, is coming from these commentators. By the way, very intelligent people, most of them, but they talk, when you think about it, about places they've never been in, again, commentating about people they never met. They are convincing you when they talk, because they are very impressive and they are very intelligent, but they've never been there. And again, once you are in there, you realize that a lot of your thoughts were stereotypes, and you need to change everything. You need to be open to everything. So once I'm there, it is very important, because I make Israelis think again. I'm not saying that I want to change, completely their point of view, but let me show you how it is. Like how it looks like for real through my documentaries, how it looks like from within. Now, I have to hide my identity. I have a foreign passport, which enables me to make like the first step inside this country. And you mentioned fear. I try to look as if I'm not afraid. And I tell you why. Because the things that attracts the most attention is when you look very much alarmed. Like, look at my face. Look at my eyes now, I look like someone who has done a bad thing. This is the look, this will be the interpretation of the locals, if they see someone with this expression on his face. Who is this guy? What's his story? And I know that if someone will ask, what's my story? It's beautiful that I have a foreign passport. We live in a technology that, they can take a snapshot of me, they can Google it, and they will see photos from my bar mitzvah. So I don't want, to create any curiosity surrounding me. And when you look cool, even if you're not inside, I'm not inside. I'm frightened to death, by the way. But on the outside, I have to look as if everything is fine. Even if people are burning, Israeli flag, American flag, I go there, I speak with them as if it has nothing to do with me. Like I'm going and I taking everything that is Israeli, like out of my entity. My attitude will not be an Israeli one, because we were taught in a very specific manner. We have logic here that we were taught, in Israel, for the good and for the bad. But we are Israelis. And a lot of Israelis, think that everything evolved around Israel. And we are very suspicious, when someone arrives in Israel, when someone is getting to a mall, is being checked and everything. So you need to think, and you need to rethink, and you need to act in a different manner. So I really, pull off my Israeli entity on the technical side, on the psychological aspect, and this is how I cope, and this is how I manage to talk to people. By the way, I like people very much, and I think it is even easier, with people from my neighborhood, because we might be enemies, at least the government, the regimes, but whether you like it or not, we are very close to each other. Think about the food, think about the kind of music, think about the bad words that we are using. A lot of similarities. So even part of my behavior would be closer to someone from Syria than, a behavior of someone from Switzerland to the one from Syria. So everything, become much easier. And I can speak a bit of Arabic, so I can communicate as well. So
it goes
this
well.
is something that I did, that I'm most proud of, like to make people here think again of who the neighbors are.
And that's incredible. So, and I think you're right. There's nothing like actually bringing the real stories and the connection. And there's a beautiful book called Alter Ego that kind of talks a little bit about how do you put that cape and suddenly you're a little bit of a different person. But I have to ask, because with a family, it's very different than without. Does that change?
It took me some time, to get married and to have my child. I did it when I was 49 years old. By the way, there are quite a few of my colleagues that still don't think about children, and I can absolutely understand why. Because you have a different responsibility now in life. It's not only your passion and not even what you believe in might worth, living child by himself with his mother. It made me think and rethink a lot about what I'm doing. And again, I believe so much in what I'm doing. So my wife knows exactly who she had married. There was never an ultimatum like stop doing it or I'm walking away. By the way, if she is going to say such a sentence, I will stop everything. Because when my wife is angry, I'm frightened more than I am while in Syria, in the war zone in Ukraine. I'm joking, half joking. But I mean, when my child was born, so again, my wife doesn't present any ultimatum, but are you sure you want to go there again? And I do go there again. But I limit myself. So you do not see it, when you watch my documentaries, you see only how deep I penetrated in, but you don't see where I told myself, no, I'm not getting in. And there are quite a lot of places, because the decision making is not only to go to Syria or to go to Iraq, but within Syria and within Iraq, to keep on going. Again, I didn't want to go to Bakhmut. Bakhmut is the most dangerous city in Ukraine, maybe in the world, in the planet. And then I decided to go to Bakhmut, and I did. But then, there was a specific neighborhood very close to the Russian snipers. And there was a colleague of mine, a woman, cameraman, photographer, sorry. And she said, Itai, are you coming over? I'm going there. And I told her, listen, you're absolutely crazy. I'm not. And she went on. And I stayed. Luckily, she managed to come back. But that was a point that I told myself, no, I'm not going there. So there are more actions like of limiting myself than I used to take, before I had a child. Yeah. But the decision is to keep on doing it still. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think that's incredible. And I appreciate the honesty. And what you're talking about is this incredible documentary that you have now that is called Last Stop Before Kiev, right? Which is nominated to, the finalist of the Emmy Award, which is incredible. Share a little bit about what does it take to create a documentary at that level and to actually be nominated, which is such a big deal.
I didn't know if we will have a film, if we will have a documentary, if we will have anything. I mean, this documentary, I think what makes it special is that we didn't have any idea of what is going to take place next. So we were, as we say in Hebrew, zomim, like go with the flow, like being knocked out from here to that place, from that place to this place. Everything is a complete surprise from the moment it began. When I came to Kiev, it was a day before the war began. And then, some Ukrainian friends took us for a drink, and they told us, listen, it is ridiculous that you came here because nothing is going to take place. And then they raised a toast for the, war correspondents who came to cover the peace. I mean, they were laughing at us. And I called my editor and told her, listen, I think it's a big mistake that we are here. I should go back to Israel. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And she told me, you're already there, so be there 1 or 2 more days. And I told her, listen, I know this job. I've been covering world conflicts for 3 decades. Nothing is going to be here. Like me, I know. Okay, she said, let's wake up tomorrow and start pack your things. And within 6 hours, the war began. A complete surprise. And it took us by surprise the way it took the Ukrainians by surprise. So we are reacting in the same manner. In this documentary, I will never pretend that I know what's going on. Like I'm in a complete surprise and I've thrown, to the first bomb, to the first falling of a building, to the first victims, to the first bodies. And then, a Russian convoy is on its way to Kiev. This is why I call it last stop before Kiev, because they are very close. 64 kilometers, like it's more than 50 miles of armored vehicles. And then the US intelligence, the British intelligence, and the Israeli intelligence are saying the same thing. Within 72 hours, there will not be Ukraine. Ukraine will cease to exist within 3 days. And we decide, no, we will not run away. We will stay here. So we decided to stay in Ukraine. And then, another big surprise. The Ukrainians are managing to hold the Russian attack, and the Russians are turning back. So everything was like from one surprise to the other surprise to the next one. And we are going from these places, the names are Irpin and Bucha, also where people were massacred by the Russians before they left. And I just want, just to sleep. It was too much for me. The bodies, the atrocities, the smell. I just want to lie down and rest a little bit. But then we get a phone call. Please hurry up, rush to the government office. There is a very important meeting that you're going to have. They did not even say that it is going to be the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. The rumor was that he had already left Ukraine. So we are going there, they're covering our eyes in order not to lose any notion of where we are. And then he appears. It was a huge surprise for me. So all of a sudden I see Zelensky. And all of a sudden we realize that Ukraine maybe can win and Russia can lose. And the world understands and they start helping Ukraine. So it is an opportunity for me to ask him about whether he tried to ask for military assistance from Israel. And he's a Jew. So there is a connection probably between him, the Jewish guy, to the Jewish nation. And, to hear his reply, it's not something pleasant. The first phrase, his first sentence while answering me is, I'm going to tell you, it will sound very insulting for you and your country, but I think that I have to tell you. And then he says, he's asking for help, but Israel decided not to help. So then, within my documentary, it's an opportunity also to show Israelis what's happening here in Ukraine. And when we are saying we will not provide, the aid that the Ukrainians want for us, what it means in terms of people dying and how much we can do more. I mean, this is history in the making, and we are on the wrong side of history, and we might change it. So again, it is something that can be said or can be suggested only, from the very deep in the field. So this is what we have done, for 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, all this mess, became like a film. And I think, the messiness of the film, it's like the real sense of what every Ukrainian went through in the first month of the war.
Amazing. And it's so, 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 so inspiring. And And now I understand also it ties really well to all your lectures about not just world conflicts, but also pushing boundaries, getting through fear, like all the things that you do and think outside the box. Because the beautiful thing, you have suddenly this power to control the narrative in such a beautiful way. And, you're definitely, leveraging that possibility and that power. And that's, I think, what you're also lecturing all over, right? So talk to me a little bit about, what are some of the things that people bring you to speak about?
Oh, well, sometimes in the universities, I'm lecturing about world conflicts, but I call it world conflicts from within. Like if I talk about a place, whether it is like the demise of Yugoslavia or Northern Ireland or Chechnya or Ukraine or Congo or Rwanda or ISIS, Iraq, Syria, whatever, I've been there. So I provide you history as well, but a lot of like from the inside. Look what's going on. And I think people appreciate it when they realize that you have been there for a change. Unlike a lot of other scholars, you have an added value. So like this is a course that I have about world conflicts, but a lot of, a lot of firms would like me to lecture about like how I work because it's like out of the box, but in a really perverse way, like
on steroids.
what's the logic? How do you do it as an Israeli to go inside Syria? Why? How? What the hell? And then I, show them how it is done. Like, look at this situation and look how I act. Look at this dilemma that I have in front of my eyes. What should I choose? What to do? It can mean life and death. And unfortunately, I lost a few of my friends, my colleagues. And what do you choose? And what's your logic? And why in some other places you need to think in their logic and not the logic that you think is the best, whether you are in Tel Aviv or in Palo Alto. There are places that it would be absolutely useless and very dangerous to think like you were taught how to think. So I have to be very, very open to the culture and to the society, understanding the history of every place I've been to. And I like it, by the way, because I like history. I major in history. I teach history. And it is part of the thing, not to get only to the action of nowadays, because, it has to do something with the past. I mean, think about the dispute in Israel and the Palestinian. Everything is a continuation of something that happened before. And people will date it, to the Bible times. So it's the same thing in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, in Russia, every one of them relating to World War II and something that happened before World War II. And, there will be those clerics who say that God told them, to fight, or God told them, that these are the Satans and you have to, whatever. But it is like an opportunity to understand the place you're going to, not only grenades and bullets. It's like a gift that I was given, the ability to go to places, to meet people, to understand culture, and to see them not only at the best of times, but in a very crucial time that might also be a very sad one. But that's life. Life is everything.
And I think that level of decision making, while understanding the true cultures and past and future and kind of what is really going on in their head, is just such a powerful skill. What do you think? What do you wish someone told you when you were younger that you think would have, changed the trajectory or helped you in some way? Do you think there's something?
I think it would have been better if someone told me very early into my career not to take too seriously the people who have brave face and talk without any doubt about the places they've never been in. Because I thought, if someone is talking with such a self-conviction about something, so he must know, because otherwise he wouldn't have spoken like that. And I thought, okay, I got to believe him. I got to follow this guy. Then he realized how bullshit exists, with these statements. So, it would have helped me to go faster to find my own way, not to think, no, he said that, so I shouldn't try the other way. But it took me like a few years to understand it. Maybe I would have worked, my first assignments would have been better if I was completely, open like to my thoughts, my way, my instincts, my gut feeling, and to everything that I see and my witness.
So I would be curious, is there something that you went through earlier in your career that built you to who you are today, or to create some of those shifts that who you are?
I got to tell you, I never dreamt about like becoming a journalist. It was not like my fantasy, but if I try to look backwards in hindsight to my childhood, not to my beginning of the career, but there was a TV show that we watched, everyone in Israel. I was an avid watcher of a program called The Time Tunnel. It was like black and white science fiction, American science fiction from the late 60s. And back in the time when I was a kid, there was only one channel in Israel. So, this is something that all the children have been watching. And that was the favorite show. It was sort of an experiment in which two American scientists by the name Doug and Tony can go through a tunnel from the laboratory, and within seconds, they would jump to another period of time. And from there to another period of time. So they could land, at the midst of World War I. Then they could whisked into Leonardo da Vinci painting the Mona Lisa, to King David's time, to the Trojan horse. And everyone in the neighborhood wanted to be Doug and Tony, including myself. But, not exactly regarding the element of traveling in time, but more like, okay, someone is throwing me to the most interesting place on earth, the most interesting spot in the most crucial time. And it is for you to see. It is for you to witness. What could be more interesting in life? So I remember when I became a foreign affairs editor in the Israeli radio, I didn't go out of Israel. I just analyzed things that happened outside Israel. I was that same commentator that I'm talking about, without a lot of love. But then I remember I was listening to, we didn't have even a cable TV. So I've been listening to shortwave BBC World Service. I remember 1323. And there was a guy called Graham Leach. He was a correspondent in the BBC. It was 1989. And he said, I'm standing by the Berlin Wall and it is falling down. And I thought to myself, no one on earth could convince me that there is a better profession than this guy have. And this is what I wanted to do, because this is sort of Doug and Tony. So, sometimes even while in Ukraine or Iraq, in Syria, I know it sounds a bit childish, but hey, I became Doug and Tony. I'm so happy. It's sort of like fulfilling a childhood dream.
Oh my God, that was so inspiring. That's incredible, because it's true. You have this incredible gift and ability to inspire the world, to show what's happening, to connect with others, to make it easier on the locals, because the way you connect, it's very clear. So you have this incredible gift that, I don't know how you do it, but it is very inspiring. What would you say, kind of final last word to the audience, people that, should, they should bring you to speak or should see, the documentary Last Stop Before Kiev? Like, what were some of the last famous words to our audience? Or people that just want to dream and create a career that they love?
I think, again, this Russian phrase says a lot, not only, regarding war zones. Again, глаза боятся, руки делают. My only Russian phrase, don't think that I'm fluent in this language, but like, the eyes are scared, but the hands are doing. Who are you to think that you cannot do it? Who are you to say negative about the possibility that you will fulfill a dream? The idea of me becoming a field correspondent and covering war zones and documenting history, I thought that I don't fit because the way I look, really. It is so stupid when you come to think about it. go, make the first step, touch it, and try to go on. And then you will realize, that you can enter a different mode. You can do those things. So do it, because you can do these things while you are young. I think I was given a gift, but I guess there is a limit to how much I can push it on, still I have my physical and mental strength, but it's not forever. So like few more years, but when you're young, like this is your time. This is your time to take some risks. So go ahead.
I think the beautiful thing, it's very clear that you found such a beautiful calling and your why is so clear, like Simon Sinek says, right? And that's what helps you continue to push forward, despite everything. So Itai, it was such a pleasure. If you guys are on a podcast, definitely check out the YouTube. We're going to have some really cool videos there that you should check out. And Itai, incredible to see you, as always.
Ilana, thank you so much for your patience, like to hear me talking, to be interested in my life story. And I really miss you. Hope to see you soon.